are here at a moment where maybe 3 years ago you said, oh, that's for other people. You are now those people. And I'm glad you're here with us. I'm glad you made it. We are in April of your child's 8th grade year. The middle school right now in the 8th grade wing is just joyful with hormones and feet smells and all the things that make 8th grade so beautiful. And we're so happy for them, and we recognize their excitement and their nervousness. So I'm Josette Huntress. I'm the head of the middle school, and I've been with you for 3 years. I just wanted you to see who's in this room with each other. Raise your hand if this is your oldest child. Okay, look around. Okay, thank you. Raise your hand if this is your second transition at Carey Academy, 8th to 9th grade. So this is your youngest, maybe your second, or maybe your third transition, 8th to 9th. Okay? Yep. Oh, yeah. Right, we got a lot. This is your second transition. This is your third transition. Raise your hand if this is your third transition, 8th to 9th. Raise your hand if you have a current upper schooler right now. Yeah. Right. So we've got wealth of knowledge in this room too. It's not just me, it's all of us. So today we're going to keep the agenda very simple. And that's it. This is our whole agenda. Today we're going to talk about what it means to be independent and dependent. I'm talking about you as parents. Talk about our job as we build their confidence in their ability to make decisions. We're going to talk about your interaction with your teachers, how you can support them, how they can support them. We're going to talk about some helpful systems you can put in place at home. Keep it above water, that's always my favorite category. And then we're going to do some questions at the end. Okay. So, the most popular people are walking through the room right now. Look at what they have in their hands. Yes. Feel free to be fluid and you can get up and get yourself some coffee or some treats as we get going. So as we think, I'd like to tell you a story about when I was first parenting a person who was crossing the floor. So my oldest, Andrew, Weston, is now in the Navy, but at the time, he was an 8th grader who his teachers just looked at him and said, he's just got to get it together. He's just got to get it together. He's got it. He's got the potential, the word potential. Potential. And I saw this short, maybe 30-second video the other day that talked about someone saying, I don't want to deal with potential anymore. I want my child to be fully potential. Fully potential. I don't want potential. You're going to live in a space of potential in this transition. And it's uncomfortable for us. And if, as a parent, we're often in the spot where we can jump in and fix. But the biggest potential we have here is growing their ability to fix their own mistakes. When they were 2, the toddlers to teens have so many developmental parallels, right? When they were 2 and they fell down, if we picked them up every time they fell down, and they would look at us lovingly and we would feel needed. Oh, I did that. I picked them up. We were quite literally harming their ability to develop their own pickup muscle. So if at 2, we pick them up every time, and we transfer that to when they're 14 or 15, and we think our job is still pick them up every time, we will be harming their ability to grow that muscle themselves. So, again, back to Andrew, transitioning from 8th to 9th grade. I was sending a child there who I knew had organizational challenges. We had some recent ADHD diagnoses. I was wondering if he was going to shower. You know, every day you're thinking about things like that. Who's in charge of his shower? He's in charge of it. So we had he and I had a lot of opportunity to have conflict, and we had a lot of opportunity to see where he could rise to the challenge. I would tell him, Andrew, I've already done 9th grade. This is you. This is going to be you. And I'm here for you. I'm not going to go to class with you. I'm not going to do it for you. This is you. So let's talk about independent. Our job as parents, and we just heard from Hope Seidel, who was with the 6th grade parents a couple days ago, talking about social media use. These children's brains are not fully developed. It's like if we want them to be fully independent or fully logical thinkers, plan ahead, we are basically asking them to be a 26-year-old. That's when the brain is fully developed. It's like asking a kindergartner to read Harry Potter. I know some of your kindergartners were reading Harry Potter, but in general, kindergartners cannot read Harry Potter. So we need to be able to provide for them chances for them to grow their independence. You've already had one of those chances. That was the course selection. Remember all of those arts that they came home with and said, what do I do with all of these arts? A lot of you called and you sought resources. You said, how can I help them make their choices? Some of your kids knew which arts they were going to take, and it was fine. They wanted to do band, it was done. But some of them were really maybe overwhelmed with all of the choices. So you sought resources, you asked your child, maybe, what do you like? So already you've had a chance to help them develop their independence. As a parent, this is the time, as we're going from 8th to 9th grade, where you will have less access to information. Believe it or not. I know some of you, it's like pulling teeth to get information. You're like, how can I get less than this? The weekly emails, for example, go directly to your child. And they can handle it. They can. You might put a system in place, when you talk about systems, that when they get that email, they just forward it to you. That's a system. But the weekly email that says, okay, when do I need to pick up and when, especially before they're driving, that will go directly to your child. So let's center ourselves in that knowledge that they can handle it and it is okay. But if you, because you're a driver and you're juggling 4,000 details at once, you might need that email. Have them help you out by forwarding it to you. That's a good system. So their independence naturally will be drinking, it'll be like they're drinking or trying to catch a fire hose with a Dixie cup at first. Because in the middle school, it's a little warm and nurturing and we've got everything and we will pull them in the right direction. And if we find someone wandering, we'll say, where are you supposed to be? In the upper school, there is a lot of immediate independence required. I don't want you to go home and say, well, Ms. Hunter said that when you get in the upper school, you better get it together because there's going to be no breaks. There's clearly going to be some breaks, but the independence that they have is going to be expected quite early. I would say the 9th grade transition that they will have in orientation and the trip and the technology class, the SEL work that they do, is really intentional the first 3 months. It will include a lot of communication with parents, and then there's a lot of independence that those 9th grade teachers help them develop. I would also like to say that at this age, 8th to 9th grade, it will make a difference if you have a boy, a girl, a gender fluid student, your child's brain, it's not going to go through this miraculous transition in the next 6 weeks. Your child's brain is your child's brain, right? So if they have a hard time with details now, just expect that that will likely be one of their challenges when they start 9th grade, right? It's not, there's no magic switch that goes off. Your child, the personality, the temperament, all the things that if your child gets anxious, just get ready to expect a little bit of that, and it might show up in more grown-up ways. Some of our 9th grade girls reported that when they felt anxious about school was about to start, they spent so much more time on Snapchat. connecting with their friends because they thought, oh, when school starts, I won't have this chance to do it. Well, they do, but that was their little 14-year-old way of, I need to control what I can control. If your child is a perfectionist, right, that's still going to continue. They will show up at 9th grade with that same temperament. Again, perfectionism is a way to control our surroundings and control the outcome. We will help them develop other ways of internal control so it won't feel so external. One of the things that we have become as parents, and it's not our fault, society kind of makes it, we sort of get dependent on our kids in a way. Sometimes our kids needing us makes us feel really good. Sometimes our kids' successes makes us feel really good. We're proud of our kids, of course we are. So in a way, this is a great time to recognize that dependence in us and how we rely on their success. And if we're putting our money on a rising 9th grader determining whether we're happy or not with them, we are going to lose every time, because it could be a day like this or a week like this. So our happiness as parents and our feelings of successful parenting are not going to be based on whether they perform well on this test or whether they show up in a way that represents our family. We're going to release that need for our happiness. And also, we don't want to put that on our kids, to be dependent. If our kids know that our happiness depends on their performance, oh, they'll perform. And we don't want to put that pressure on them. Okay? I talk about, if you think about whether our parents' generation had it better or worse than our generation of parents, I don't know. The side-by-side would be really incomparable. We are dealing with things with our kids and connections with our kids that our parents didn't have to. I mean, I like to joke that my mom was vaguely aware that I applied to college. Vaguely aware. I told her at the table, I got into Colby, could you please pass the potatoes? And she was like, oh, that's great. Are you going to go? Yeah. It's an early decision. Okay, what's that? And it was just not a conversation that I had included my parents in. They didn't want to be in it. It was a very different generation. Some of you probably experienced, maybe not to that extreme, but to an extreme where you are clearly more involved. And in a way, we as parents can't help feel dependent on our children's schedule, our children's daily lives, our children's successes, and our children's happiness. So just recognize that in ourselves. Okay, as your children transition and they become high schoolers, they're going from a community of 300 on the dot to 489. So not all that different. Class size will go from 105 to about 125. You'll get some new kids. Those new kids are amazing. You can imagine the caliber of kid who gets in of 20 accepted students in a pool of hundreds. So those kids are joining our kids. That's an excellent opportunity for new friendships, for work on including new people, to make friends on sports teams. So there will be new names that are thrown at you, right? Names that you don't recognize of kids that are being welcomed into the group. That's going to be part of their independence. I want to meet new friends, and I'd like to branch out a little bit. So you're going to see them getting a little, what's the word? Remember when they were in preschool and they had their own life and they talked about new friends? It's going to be a little bit like kids that perhaps they became friends with the last 3 weeks of 8th grade are going to be their best friends now. That's what happens. Okay, as your job grows, or as your job sort of tied it back a little bit in terms of making their decisions for them, your job right now is to really encourage them to be the one who make their decisions. And you will have to stand by as some of those decisions go wrong. And it is going to be okay, because the pain of learning the lesson from a bad decision is also what's going to prevent them from making that decision in the future. I think in my experience working in the upper school, and I would say that Robin Follett and Dr. Don Eason would agree, when parents partner with the school, if there is a time of conflict, whether it's a conflict with behavior or grades or friendships, when parents say, I'm here, what can I do, how can I be supportive at home? This is our role as parents. We want our child to be successful. We want our child to learn. What can we do? That's when the child actually has the most growth. When we have our generation of fear-based parenting come in and want to fix and we want to sweep everything under the carpet and say, oh, it's everybody else's fault, or wherever our brain goes with it, because we want it not to have happened, whatever the conflict is, we could potentially undermine our child's confidence in being able to handle things with autonomy. So an example might be you get into high school and your first semester history class is a semester course. It's not a year-long course where you have the whole year to bring up a lousy test grade or something like that. It is a semester. So you can imagine the amps are turned up to 11. That's the first grade you get in high school. And there could be some anxiety and some fear around, this is your first grade that goes on the college, your transcript, and that goes to college. And your child gets a B. And your child maybe has not gotten a B before. I might not be talking to all of you, but for some of you, that could be the case. And your first instinct might be to call Mr. Follett or call Dr. Eason and just say, what can we do to change this grade? And that's not going to be where we need our parents to be. Your child will, if has concern about the grades, should have had these conversations all along, should be talking to the teacher. There will be an opportunity for your child during the semester to have demonstrated their knowledge, and maybe the B is where they are, right? We don't grade them in comparison to others, but that class is a hard class, and maybe the B is where they are. I think the lesson that can be learned from the first B, all of your children will probably get a B. The lesson that you can learn from getting that first B is not that mom and dad are going to call, or my parents are going to call the school and complain and try to get it changed. The lesson is, was that the best of your ability? Do you like getting that B? What could you have done differently? Do you think you could have done something differently? Sometimes your kids will say, no, I worked my butt off for that B. Then you're going to bake a cake and throw a party. That's how it works when you have grades that feel higher stakes. Grades that feel higher stakes do not equate with my child always needs to get all A's. Okay. A's and B's from Carey Academy are understood differently by colleges than straight A pluses from other schools. They get us in that way. Okay, so building their confidence and their ability to make their decisions. Another decision that you might face, which again, this might be near and dear to your heart, but if they decide that they would like to not play a sport, or they would like to join something that previously they have never joined, and you don't know anything about it, whether it's theater, or debate, physics, club, all of those things. If they're saying, I'd like to try this out, or I'd like to drop something. I don't know how you're going to handle that in your own home. I don't know how you've handled it with other children. But I just want you to know it's okay for them to start making decisions about managing their time. If they're saying, I can't do club hockey at 6 in the morning and also after school swimming, that's really hard for me. I need to balance it. Listen to the words they're saying and process that. The sentence you say, not is what I said to Sophie Holland when she wanted to drop tennis. I said, do you know how much money I've paid for tennis lessons? I'm not going to drop tennis. And the girl said, no, I want to try out for volleyball. we did an X Day activity with Miss D when I was in 6th grade, and I fell in love with volleyball. So PowerPoints came all summer about why volleyball was good for girls. I finally relented, and she's playing volleyball, and I apologized to her for saying, I'm sorry I gave you such a hard time for that. I'm not proud of my response. Are you kidding? Tennis lessons? That's where we're going. When your child says, I think I need to balance my time and drop something, it is okay. They are saying to you, my mental health matters here more than my resume. Now, you'll get it if you'll start to see signs if your child is overextended. You'll start to see signs if there's some ways to manage that your child is not picking up on. We have a lot of systems in place. For example, let's say you're at home and your child isn't dropping anything and is just adding to the plate. You're going to call the upper school counselor, Tawana Mons. Hey, not a problem. I'm just noticing, Miss Mons, that my child keeps adding and staying up really late, doing homework because they're doing key club things and volleyball things late. Any strategies I can use? And Tawana will be great. Give you some strategies to help you set them up for success. So sometimes when they're making decisions, you know, okay, this child is going to be burning the candle at both ends. I have to sit and watch this for a moment. I'm not going to offer my opinion or a solution. I'm going to approach it with curiosity. Hey, how do you feel today? How is that going with debate? You had a tournament all weekend. How'd that go? You feel good? Were you able to do your homework? You know, just talk to me a little bit about that. And your children will tell you. If you listen, they'll tell you how they're balancing. I feel like middle school has been a good practice at that. We've had opportunities for X Day for your kids to make choices. And when your kids come home and say, hey, I played on the field all morning, and then I played this all afternoon, and you're like, oh my gosh, my kids were playing all day at school? Yeah, they were. They made that choice. And they were doing it, and they were so happy. And they see that their friend made a different choice. Maybe they were in robotics or neuroscience and all these other academic camps, and they saw what they were doing, and next time they might choose one of those. It's going to be fine. Allow your kids to have the opportunity to make those choices. What you don't want is to send an 18-year-old off to college who has never made a decision about his or their own courses. Again, high school is practice for a lot of things. Middle school has given them opportunities to practice it. As you get to high school, you will have an advisor assigned to you, and that advisor will be your advisor for 4 years. Different from the middle school, where the 8th grade team is a new set every year. So as your advisor will be literally your child's school auntie or uncle. That will be their little family unit. Advisory is still the same time, Tuesday and Friday. They do, when they go to their Camp Skeleton trip at the beginning of the year, they're grouped by advisory. They do lots of team building things with each other. But that advisor becomes your contact person, much like it is this year, but this will be consistent for 4 years. We do this in a couple of different ways. The academic focus of the advisor is just brilliant in the upper school. They have the whole year trajectory. They know all the prerequisites that you need for different courses. They're really your child's go-to person. Yes, you can take Chem I if you have honors algebra 2. Oh yeah, we know that. All those things that you had to go through when picking your advisor next year will help you handle all of that. In fact, you may know afterwards that your child has already met with the advisor and it's all taken care of. That's the goal, that you get to be parent, not little project manager for the next 4 years. So your advisor is your #1 interacting person. Let's say there's a death in the family or there's an extended absence. Your advisor is the person that your child will go to first, or if you have information, you go to the advisor first. That, I can't stress enough that that advisor will be your #1 point person. Usually, children ask their advisor to write a recommendation for whatever it is, summer jobs, summer programs, college, and the advisor can because they can talk about the 4-year trajectory. That's a super helpful thing. I've been in a lot of independent schools, and for those schools that have that 4-year advisory program, it's always really student-centered. You can think about faculty-centered versus student-centered. A 4-year advisor is student-centered because it allows for that knowledge growth. We talked a little bit about it. We all feel like middle school is written in pencil and high school is written in pen, and so therefore everything has to be perfect and our child has to perform in a way that maybe they got to bring their A game. You know, whether we've said it out loud, I know we as parents feel it inside. And we want to set them up for success in any way we can. You have all been to 9th grade, you've done that already. So it has to fall on their shoulders and their work. So as they interact with their teachers, it will be important that the first point of contact is them. For example, let's say they are adjusting, they get placed in honors geometry. And honors geometry and geometry are the same content, but honors, if you're looking at a textbook, for example, regular geometry will do all the practice problems and then jump to maybe one really hard, deep thinking problem. In honors geometry, you skip over all the practice and you spend the whole time in the deep thinking. That's really just the difference, but at the end of the day, they've covered a lot of the same material. It's just a different pace. And so let's say your child is placed in honors geometry and it's not going well and it's way over their head. And they come home and you see the tears or you see that. Your first question is, have you gone to talk to your teacher? Your teacher's available. Please go talk to your teacher. Express your concern. You might then get a call from the teacher. I think your child is right. I think he is over his head. We're going to put him in regular geometry this year, let his brain develop a little bit, right? It's like riding a trike. When your kid can't ride a trike, they can't ride a trike, but all of a sudden they can ride a trike. That's brain development. Math, same way. Showing that geometry to a kid whose brain is not ready to have the geometry, it will look like just muddled. But when their brain is ready, it's ready. So let's say we get him through the year in regular geometry, and then we think about honors next year, or we think about a different course next year. So that first thing out of your mouth, have you talked to your teacher yet? What's your plan? Are you planning to talk to the teacher? You're empowering them to make that move. Whereas in elementary school or middle school, you might have just picked up the phone or sent an email. Allow that first point, because the teachers notice too. The teachers are like, okay, look at this child advocating for themselves. It's a really good way to help them build their relationships and get that extra help and maybe set up some times to come in. So if you're worried about your child seems over their head, and I know we don't have the comparison game, but if you're like, well, my friend's child doesn't seem to be struggling, that is true, probably. Your friend's child isn't struggling in that particular class. But generally, we don't like to compare, because if you were to say, well, so-and-so doesn't seem to be struggling in math, your children will remember that, and then they'll tell us that you said that. So we always hear. And so, you know, what can we do with that? So we're definitely in the spot right now where your first thought is, have you gone to see your teacher? Okay, I'm cruising through here. I'm going to talk about, and this is where we will get to share if we have any systems that you put in place in your house. A system that is different from middle school, but it still fits the personality of your children. For example, if you are parenting a neurodivergent child, as many of us do, there's a lot of ways that you can cause harm by, you know, shaming the person for not remembering things, or putting lots of grief in, and like openly mourning, oh, why can't you remember these things? That is a way to put a negative system in place. But a positive system for someone perhaps who is struggling with organization might be to make the thinking visible. In my house, that was Sunday night. We always did a Sunday night check-in, and I like to go to the whiteboard. So we're going to go to the whiteboard in our house, and we're going to put the 3 children's system. What does this week look like for you? So each child, marker, I've got soccer, 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 I've got this. So everyone could see that on Sunday night, this is what each other was dealing with during the week. It was, and again, my neurodivergent was like, I'm good. No, you can't write I'm good on there. Like, get out your planner, we're going to do this. So, Monday, math test. Okay, we got that. Tuesday, soccer game. If they can see not only themselves written out and make that thinking visible, they can see themselves as part of a family unit that has a lot going on. And you have 1 child or you have 4. You see, if you can see and build maybe a little empathy of what your parents are dealing with, and also to see that you have to, in a way, build some independence because your mom has 40 of things going on that day, it might be really helpful. So the one system that we do that I find successful with neurodivergence is to make that thinking visible. Some people do Post-its. By whiteboard, you might have some other way for you to make it colorful or visible for the child. And frankly, we'll go back to that throughout the week as well. Okay, Thursday, what do we have this week? We've got that. Chances are a lot of our children got all of our virtues and none of our flaws, but if you also struggle with keeping all things together and all the details together, that making thinking visible will help. Other systems are if you have a verbal child who likes to talk things out, they don't necessarily need to see it, and you can get them in the moment where they will actually talk to you, and it's not the, hey, how's your day? It was good. When you can ask specific questions about what are you looking forward to, how can I support you this week, what are we going to need for transportation? That verbal talking it through is that's all that some of your kids need. You will frantically be taking notes. Okay, this is what I have to do this week, especially before your children start driving. So sometimes it's just a verbal. Do it at a time when emotions are not super high. Just after bombing a math test, for example, is not the time to talk about preparing for the next math test. Do it when emotions are low so you can have a little bit more of a conversation. This weekend's letter is about making a mistake, and one of the strategies at the end of the letter that we'll hear in box at 6 and on Sunday morning is about the first sentence out of your mouth whenever you're talking about a schedule or a mistake. The first sentence should be alignment. I know you have a busy week coming up. I know you don't like the feeling of making a mistake. I know last week was rough on you. Do you see how that sentence of alignment gets rid of all the, oh my God, I got to perform for my mom or my dad right now. It gets rid of that so you have a shoulder-to-shoulder approach with your children. And this can work for anything. If that first sentence out of your mouth is alignment for any of these things, then your child is more likely to share and participate in whatever conversation you need to have. So a system in place is making thinking visible or talking it through. What other systems are in place? Let's hear from some of those people who have upper schoolers. What systems might you have put in place that you found helpful? To get you out of the house in the morning? On time?
That's why you're here.
Any other systems? Yeah.
I check Blackboard regularly because that's good to kind of see how many tests my son has, or there's like just keep progress with what his grades are, like you said, to say, oh, you need to talk to the teacher about this last project, I don't know, something like that. So I think like in middle school, you probably check it somewhat, but in high school, I feel like you're checking it a lot more to kind of keep pace to see what's going on.
What do you do with that information once you check it?
I will say my husband's more the checker, but it's definitely, like you said, conversations to say, like, okay, I see, you're doing well in this class, or like, do you need to talk to your teacher, being like saying, like, being proactive, what's going on, I see you have a test, like today, yesterday I had a track meet, and today I have a history test. So he told me, I'm going to talk to my coach, as soon as I'm done running, I'm going to say, I need to go back home to study, because I have a big test. Like, usually they have to stay for the whole thing. And I said, yeah, I feel like that's a smart approach.
See, and there you go. I feel like you made a good decision here. That's a smart approach.
But like you said, it could just be a starting point for conversation. Like, you see, you have a lot of tests coming up, are you studying, have you been preparing, you need to take the weekend, things like that.
Yeah, and you have 2 children who are tolerant of you checking Blackbaud and having those happen. Some of us may have children who are like, us checking Blackbaud feels intrusive to them. And they might say, what are you doing checking the Blackbaud? Well, it's there, it's an open grade book, and so, this might be a summer conversation for y'all. Do you want me to check your Blackbaud? How often do you want me to, what would feel good, me checking your Blackbaud, like once a week? And your child would be like, why is dad asking me this? Why? But what if you said, all right, now that you're in high school, what do you need from me in Blackbaud? Do you want me to check? And they might, some of them are like, they don't exactly call you Blackbaud stalkers, but they know which moms, and they know if that grade, they ask their teacher, are you putting that grade in now? Because I really want to go to this birthday party. They're managing that, so ask your children, how do you want me to show up for you in Blackbaud? Yeah.
Could you say how faculty feel about that? If the faculty were all here lined up,
Yes.
would they be like, oh my God, stop checking Blackbaud, or would they say?
I would say just some of you, I think some of you admit like, I can't.
I think they would. I mean, what we're saying is you can see the kids walk through the hallway and say, oh, I just got a text that our parent checked Blackbaud, and they were right. That's not healthy, it's not helpful.
Yeah.
And so I think us as the adults in the building and the faculty, we see that, right? We know when those texts are coming through, we know when that pressure's coming through. I think teachers want you all to be aware, right? But that is not being aware, that's like aggressive. Really aggressive. So I think the teachers would say there's definitely a balance, right? Because they don't want you all blindsided by anything, but that immediate like texting them at 11 a.m. saying I saw this in Blackbaud, that's not helpful to me.
Yeah. Ask your child, how do you want me to show up? And trust their answer. Say, hey, we'll do it. You can do anything on a trial basis. Hey, for the first month, let's do a trial basis. How do you want me to show up in Blackbaud? Because I don't ever check Blackbaud. As a parent, and I have 3 kids and 1 at boarding school, my kid at boarding school could be doing anything. And I'm not checking any of his Blackbaud as well. I'm not checking it. I trust that he's going to tell me if he needs me, and he's grown into that by his junior year. He has grown into telling me when he needs my help. Can you talk through this paper with me? Blah, blah, blah.
In upper school, so I probably don't check Blackbaud enough, but are the teachers more, and this is not a criticism of teachers,
Sure.
but in middle school, I see that some teachers put everything on Blackbaud. And again, I couldn't be like a very junior Blackbaud user and not know a lot of this stuff. I just kind of do, like, I have to fill out a form, oh, let's check, type of thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes the school requires you. But are they more consistent?
I would say it depends on the class. There are several classes that you take that have big projects. So you might get a project where you have natural checkpoints, and so you might get a grade a week. But then you take those upper level courses where you have a test maybe every month, and that goes in, and those are big tests or big papers. So it depends on the class. I would say that we're super diligent in grades 7 through 12 about understanding that Blackbaud is the public record, and that people do check, and that it matters, and it has to be up to date. But I would say that in middle school, we generally do have a lot more grading opportunities. Especially if you remember in 6th grade, there's just always lots of stuff in there. So you experience it first and then circle back to me and say, hey, Josette, I just want to circle back. I know with my daughter, who's currently in 9th grade, she knows exactly where she stands. She knows which teachers take 24 hours to grade and which teachers take a week to grade, so you'll have to feel that out. Other systems that you have. Anyone, you might have to, a lot of people have said we take the phone away, or we have the phone downstairs at 10 o'clock at night. If that if you're noticing that that is helpful for your children to get some sleep and protect their sleep, feel free to continue that. We use a boarding school model, so 9th and 10th grader, if you're a 9th and 10th grader in my house, it's plugged away far from your bed, but as 11th grade, you can then start having it by your bed, and I don't know if, I think I just do that for brain development, and I want to protect, we're pretty good at protecting sleep in my house, so you want to do things to protect sleep. I would say with that phone, you know your child, you know your child's capability. They might not be interested in having their phone or being on their phone. It might not be a problem. I don't automatically leap to the phone is the problem, ever. In fact, a lot of our kids in the upper school use their phone for reminders, for notifications. You'll see our upper schoolers with their phones during the day. They're allowed to have them. But it is, a lot of times they're using them to remind them about things or to communicate with each other. Hey, study group in the library, okay. Other systems that are helpful?
I would say my systems are more reactive because it's seasonal. So sometimes when it's hot and heavy sports, you kind of have to come home and feed them. Sometimes you have to come home and give them a break. Sometimes they have to come home and go straight upstairs. It's reactive systems. It's a little bit more fluid, but kind of have like a set of it's like when they're babies. They're either hungry, tired, or thirsty, right? So like your kids are either hungry, tired, or thirsty, or busy. I guess you could replace thirsty or busy, but so it's going to be reactive all season, but you kind of keep those same ideas in place. I'm the snack mom. Everybody in the entire school knows I'm the one that has snacks in my car all times, and so they literally come to me and ask me for that. But they're always hungry, tired, or they have something going on. So the systems are sometimes reactive. They're not always, as an industrial engineer, should be more system reactive. They're not always that way, but sometimes they're reactive systems.
And what if you just made that language so common in your house as you're pulling in the driveway? Let's talk about what you need. Are we hungry? Are we busy? You need a little downtime. You need half an hour to just sit in a quiet room and just process. Some of our introverts, man, they get home after a day at Care Academy where they're peopling, and all the peopling, they just need a little bit of a minute to just process. Another system for you might be that Friday night becomes a night where you have either a family night or you do something to reconnect. We have a good system now where we have one homework-free night in the upper school, same thing, A, B, flex, or class day, no homework, A, B. So you do have a little bit of that pace, is the same. But Friday night in a lot of people's homes, those kids get their homework done. It's a family night, we'll have maybe a movie, but we'll also do some work together with our slippers on and everyone's on the computer doing work together. That takes the pressure off to do so that they can get it done before they won't be hanging over their head all weekend. Some families like to do that Sunday night when they do their check-in. That's one way to do it as well. But if you can focus and let them see you working too, or grab a book or read it while they do that, it could be a way to normalize having a weekend night where they're doing work. They will have weekend homework in the upper school. They just will. And it will, generally you can do it in one night unless it's one of those big project weekends, or they procrastinate and they want to bang out a paper all weekend. They will have weekend homework. If your child is doing club soccer, club hockey, swimming, sometimes weekends get sucked up by that. just expect that your child's efficiency will grow naturally. Let's say they're not the most efficient person right now, but it will grow naturally as they go. Boys are generally a little bit behind girls in their, not for everyone, but in general, in their ability to be super, super efficient with academic work. So a system like that might help you. Any other systems? We've got lots of experience here, yes, and then, yes.
It's working in progress, but he's trying to book my calendar. He needs some support.
He books your calendar. Okay. Yeah,
Not really.
and that would be asking for help and learning how to do that. Those are two amazing skills. And to teach our boys to do that, I mean, when the world is teaching them not to, like, that's great. Normalize that. Let's normalize, hey, I need your input on this. Maybe we could even say that to our kids. I need your input on it. I need your help with. I mean, we never, when do we say that to our kids? We could do that. Instead of, I need your help taking out the trash, that's different. I need your help with this. Okay, what do we have?
So we're super old. We always work with physical planners.
Okay,
So everybody takes physical planners.
okay.
And what we do is mostly after Saturday morning breakfast, we'll say, all right, calendar meeting, everybody calendar meeting, everybody goes, okay, it's our calendar. And then we go day to day and what does everybody have on each day.
Yeah.
But we've found that what it does is if we have a super busy Saturday or super busy Sunday, then the conversation turns to, all right, if we have to do all of these things because we have so many people at home, when are you going to have time to do what you have to do? Because it's not going to be doing that time. And it sort of helps them out to plan forward. That's
Okay.
it, right?
Yeah, that's building their capacity for independence, especially when you have a lot of people at home.
Yeah.
You might not have to have your hand on the wheel and you say, you just have to get that done.
And they also see what everybody has on their plate,
Yeah.
which is very, very
Empathy building. Yeah.
Another good
Sorry.
strategy that, sorry,
Oh, yeah,
that we, as a mom, I have is putting the kids to talk together. So for example, I'm preparing the salad, and I ask Maripaz, you're coming to the kitchen table and you're gonna work there, because I know you're not doing your homework. I do too. And they start walking in silence. And then Maya asks, what are you doing? Maripaz responds, I'm doing this project for French that is this and this, and Maya, oh, stop. Did you buy your material yet? Are you, because you're gonna need time. This is not an easy project, Maripaz, you need to start doing this and this, and they start sharing, things over the table. I'm just here. That is the only way sometimes that you get the kids to talk about it and to know what.
So you provide a space for them to connect with and share with each other,
Yeah.
which is a system.
With my hearing,
Yeah. You become the invisible.
Yeah, working with the child, yeah. It's a good.
Okay.
Because sometimes, they hide information, and sometimes in the car, I have 4 girls, so they talk every single time over each other. But I'm a woman too, so I know they're not sharing the good information. I have followed before, but I know they're hiding something. So sometimes if they talk, you get a better piece of information.
That you are so, and we have 4 families in the middle school who, there are 4 children here right now. There are 4 families with 4 children. And the amount of military-like precision that you have to have to do this is remarkable. So whatever system you have, I want to do it. And for me, sorry.
So along with, I'm one of those with 4 children also, but kind of along the same lines, we are not, write it out people, but all my children now have devices, so we do a shared calendar. So I was going to say, if anyone wants a recommendation on an app, we use Cozy, which is fantastic. Everyone has their own color, so you can't really see, but we have, it's in there for everyone. Like my husband has his own color, I have my own color, the kids. So swim, lacrosse, any like the kids are in charity organizations, whatever, like everything's in there so they all see it. So kind of that same thing that Josette was saying, like, you give each other grace, like you give me grace, Dad grace, like, we have 2 drivers now, so that's kind of what Sandra was saying too, like, getting them to talk to each other, that's kind of their time. I make sure that, like, Blake, you're picking up Scylla from swim, they get that time together to chat, or Misha, you're getting Case from here, like, the things that I hear from them when they've picked up their siblings, I don't get that stuff at all, which is really nice. And then the other thing was we have a group chat. I'm sure everyone has that, but we have like a Nassim Fam Bam group chat. And the stuff that happens in there too is just nice. Like I'll just drop like a video or something like, oh, Case scored or something, and then the way they show up for each other just in the chat is really cool to see also. So little things like that.
Yeah. We can't forget the nourishing their souls during this part too. It's not just about the schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a very specific logistical question for you too. So the physical calendar or the online calendar, I don't think one of my kids would ever fill out the calendar. So do you actually sit together to have them fill out the calendar?
Well, they said they do, right?
We sit down together, and then everybody, like, funny boss will say, yeah, I have a meet. Everybody writes down meet, right? But it's not the point of writing down meet, it's the conversation.
Yeah.
It always lasts at least 2 hours, because then that becomes a conversation over this conversation. And then we hear about the test, and we hear about the project, and we hear about, so it's not really about the calendar, it's just really the meeting.
And I will say, not gonna lie, I have one child out of 4, I won't name names, who still hasn't subscribed to our family calendar.
Now I feel
it's okay. We have one that he or she figures it out. I mean, because there's lots of dialogue happening, but hasn't subscribed. So, you know.
feel better.
All right. We are in the Keep It Above Water. This is, I think, one of the things that has for parental health. This is one of the things, if you remember anything I want you to remember. There are 2 things or 2 types of mistakes that our children will automatically want to put underwater so that you never see them. And the first is the mistake that messes with your plan for their future. Let's say that again. A mistake that they made, which they perceive that messes with your plan for their future. Whether it's a mistake with drugs or alcohol and they get caught at school, or they've cheated, or there's something that they have done that they know would be in your top 10 of mistakes. Because the thing that we find the most valuable is our hope for their future, right? That's like currency for us. And they feel as though telling you about a mistake like that would take away some of that currency. Literally, they have told me that's exactly what they feel. If they're messing with your happiness or your dream for them, they will take that mistake and bury it so far, and they think it goes away when they bury it. The second mistake is a mistake that they want to bury that messes or somehow signals something different from their family values. Again, there's lots of crossover. The Venn diagram is overlapping here. If they have made a mistake at school or told a lie or something like that. We need to establish before high school with our kids that we want those mistakes above water. Burying them is so counterintuitive than what you really want as a parent, and they don't believe that because they're still fear-based. Piaget is still working in their heads. They're still very concrete. The abstract concept of, I want this mistake, I will be shoulder to shoulder with you, I got you, we can get through it, I know you don't like making this mistake, and I know it doesn't feel good, I'm going to be with you as you sort this out. That sort of approach Does not mean there won't be consequences, doesn't mean there isn't learning moments, but the first instinct when children make a mistake is, oh my God, do you have to tell my parents? And as a parent, you need to know that the stakes get higher, the mistakes get bigger, more dramatic, and completely creative. The mistakes that your children will make in 4 years will be so creative that you will say, oh, I didn't even think about that. So there is the tendency to wait. Oh, this is not okay. My kid is terrified to make a mistake. Those are the kids who are underwater the most. My kid doesn't make a mistake. What I call those kids are unpracticed troublemakers. If you are an unpracticed troublemaker, the shame that you feel, and I've disappointed my parents, they're not going to be happy, that might be true, but the reaction of a 14-year-old needs guidance in those moments of weakness. So I would encourage you to use humor, use what you say. In high school, there will be mistakes. And I got you, we got this. I don't know what the mistakes are gonna look like. In their eyes, you're perfect, right? So if we could tell them maybe a little bit sometimes, oh, there are some mistakes I made, woo, and normalize learning and growing from that, they'll listen, they'll be quiet, but they'll listen, so that in a month from now, if they have a mistake, or they have more likely the first time they have a friend who has made a mistake, right? They went to a party and there was stuff going on there and they didn't know what to do. They may have made some poor choices. Let them be the one to talk with you. Keep it above water. As you build that capacity to fix your face, right? When they tell you the big reaction, oh my gosh, let's fix our face and let's just say, okay, well, how did that go for you? What were you thinking in the moment? How do you feel now? Keep it at a level that they're not going to have to manage your emotions the next time something happens. I would say when you're keeping it above water and you have had, your child has come to you and said they've made a mistake and you don't know what to do, call each other, like call some, girl, what do I do with this? And if you have that someone, or if you have this, you still have us, right? We're still here in the middle. I get calls from y'all all the time. Help me out with this. What do I do? Think about it. You now are growing your village to help you parent through these mistakes. What you don't want to create is a child who's gone off to college who has never made a mistake, because they don't know that they can handle it if they haven't handled it. You've always handled it, or if they've just, put it underwater. At Carey Academy, the kids who get, let's say, maybe if they happen to feel the pressure and they cheat on a test, and they get caught and they serve the punishment, right? So those kids have learned, okay, maybe success at the expense of my integrity is not worth it. If there are kids who don't ever get caught cheating, right, but they do it and they don't ever get caught, and let's say maybe they brag about it a little bit, the respect and integrity part of our campus is actually really intense in that way, and our kids will sort of gravitate and respect the person who's paid the price versus the person who's kind of gotten away with everything and has never really been caught. And plus, you don't want to create an adult in the world who thinks that they can just do that. In med school, you cheat once and you can never be a doctor. Like, that's just, you can't have doctors who cheat in this world. So there's definitely a way that we can lay the groundwork for owning a mistake. Our reaction, big or small, reasonable or not, matters with our little growing humans. So as some of your children will grow 4 inches this summer, right? They will have boyfriends, girlfriends, partners in ways that new friendships bloom the last 3 weeks of 8th grade. Allowing their wholeness and their ability to show up uniquely as themselves is probably one of the wildest journeys that you'll be on in the next 12 to 18 months. And we've seen our community as parents be so much more in tune with it, perhaps than we were before COVID. Because we're paying attention to things that matter now. Sleep, nutrition, wellness, stress levels, perfectionism, anxiety. Those types of things are showing up in the way we parent and as we look at big milestones like this transition. And I'm proud of us as a school for doing things like this and paying attention to it, but I'm also in awe that it happens every year, over and over, year after year, that we have a new group who sits in your seats I ran this last year, and I should have been in the seat last year because my third child was making that transition. But for you to be able to say, okay, I've got a group of people, these will be my people for the next 4 years, my kid is going to be okay, we've got a village around my child, mistakes are going to be part of this, successes are going to be part of this, my happiness and my success as a parent is so completely not tied to whether they are academically or athletically or socially successful. I'm going to parent the way I parent and support them. I think you are in a really good spot at a school that is in a really good place to address things like that, if that makes sense. Okay, so final tips and takeaways. I love this picture. This was the middle school lacrosse team as they scored the winning goal. It was 6-5 over Durham Academy. Anytime you beat Durham Academy. I want to put a picture there. And you've got the little boys, as soon as the game is over, they run and they support the goalie, right? And they just go, and immediately that's where they go. So you're going to be kind of like the goalie here. Like, don't expect that the whole team is going to run and gather around you, but you know that your role here is just one part of their whole system. They've got all these other people. Remember that little neurodivergent Andrew, 8th grader, who I wanted him to be fully potential? That's him up there, as the coach of this team. So his ability to get through, if you had told me in 8th grade, oh, he's going to be coaching the team that he played on, and he's going to teach them all of these important things about you go support your goalie, you go, perseverance, diligence, teamwork, showing up for each other. If you actually asked me, I would say actually he did have that back in 8th grade. I was so focused on schoolwork and organization and all the things he wasn't doing that I didn't see he actually had all that back then. So I want us to keep our eyes on our kids in that way too. They've got the spirit. I see them getting out of their cars every morning. Well, maybe not your 8th graders right now because they like to go over there with all the big kids. But sometimes if it's raining, I know where they come right in front of me. I see them. They're showing up for each other with greeting and joy and smile. Not every day, but most days. That's where you're going to have a picture like this one day, right? Where your big kid now comes back and helps little kids, and everything's going to make sense to you. All right, now we have time for some questions.